We've already looked at select, filter, mutate, and arrange verbs. Now let's go ahead and look at the summarize and group by verbs from the Dplyr package. So the group by here just groups the table by a variable. This is actually similar to pivoting a certain variable in Excel. The summarize verb here just takes a data frame with n rows, computes the summaries, and returns a data set with one row or observation. It's also important to note that when using the summarize verb, we normally use the statistical summaries like mean, median, variance, standard deviation, and so on and so forth. So let's start by looking at the filter verb. We've already looked at this, but let's say we wanted to filter for a specific year. Okay, so here we're just going to pass the column name, or rather the variable year. Then we use the logical operator there, and we pass a condition, right? Here we want to find the mean. So, and also here we're going to find the total population. Okay, so we get only one observation. All right. What if we wanted to find for another year? Okay, so it might require us to iterate. We'll have to change this multiple times, right? All the way from 1952 probably to 2007. We don't want that. And this is where the power of group by comes in. Okay, so we can easily just summarize the life expectancy for all the years by simply passing the year variable here to the group by function. Then we summarize by the mean of life expectancy and the total population. So when we execute this, we can now see that so each year has one observation. Okay, from here we can note that the life expectancy increased from 1952, 49 years, all the way to 67 years in 2007. Similarly, there was an increase or growth in total population from 1952 or 2.4 billion all the way to 6.25 billion. Okay, so now that we already know that, suppose now we wanted to summarize the average life expectancy by continent for a given year. So we can actually combine that. So we can just use the filter, then we group by continent, and then summarize all that. Okay, so when we run this, you can see now we do have all the continent life expectancy and total population for all the continent. And we can see already that Oceania here has the highest life expectancy, followed by Europe. Then on the lower spectrum, we have Asia and Africa, with the lowest life expectancy. In fact, we can also go ahead and group this by, we can just say arrange, and we want to arrange by mean life here. So we can pass this mean underscore life, right? So we run this again, should be able to rearrange for us. So from the lowest to the highest. Okay. All right. So we can also, what if we wanted to, understand the trends over time, want to find the changes over time for life expectancy by continent and year. Okay. So again, we can use the group by, only this time around we can pass the continent, right? We can pass the continent and year. Okay. So here we just want to find the average life expectancy and the total population for each continent by year. So basically that's what we're doing here. So we run this, we can see, in fact, we can see that, in fact, even I can swap this to continent, right? Then I can remove this just to have year on the first column, right? And we can see here, so we kind of in 1952 we have Africa, Americas, Asia, Europe, Oceania, right? And each of these have the following life expectancy and total population. So this keeps on going for the different sub levels. 1957, we also look, it kind of summarizes for all the different continents. So this just helps us to kind of view the summary, or rather the changes over time. And there are better ways of doing this. And we're going to look at that in a later video. Another thing you can easily do, so for example, if we wanted to filter for a specific continent, okay, and we want to find the minimum and the maximum life expectancy and by year. So what we can do here, first of all, we need to filter by continent. So we know we have a continent called Europe. So just gonna do that, Europe. Okay. Then we pipe this, we group by year, then we summarize, and we say we want to get the mean for life expectancy. Then also we want to get the max, or this is actually minimum. So that will be the mean and the max. Okay. And then we can store the contents of all this, okay, into a new object here called Europe _ life expectancy. Then we can output it back here, right? Then we can see here for each of these different year, you can see how the life expectancy in Europe sort of increased over time, okay, and kind of just maximized that here. So the maximum for this year is 81 and the minimum is 71.7. So this is a very useful summary statistics, and you can see we only used 3 verbs here to kind of just extract all that information using the pipe. So we actually chaining all these different functions to come up with this very highly summarized information. Then also another useful function is called the count and the n function. We use this to count the number of things. For example, here the n simply just means we return the number of observation in a calculation. So for example, here if we wanted to group by continents, okay, we can get how many observations are actually in each of the continent, right? So we run that, we can see in our entire data set, we have 624 observations, okay, referencing the continent Africa and so on and so forth. Oceania here, we have 24 observations or rows that kind of reference Oceania, okay. Other things you can do, for example, using summarize and group by, let's say we wanted to calculate the standard error of the life expectancy by continent. To do that, we can calculate that. We know standard error is the same as dividing the standard deviation, okay, of the sample by the square root of the sample size. To do that, it's the same thing as just getting the life expectancy column divided by the square root of n. So this function just gets us the total sample, which I think should be 1,704, the total observations in our data set, or rather in the data set. Okay, so again here we can find the standard deviation. So I'll just put there that function, that we find the standard deviation of that divided by the square root of that. Okay, then we want to group this by continent. Okay, so we're just going to pass there continent. All right, so we run that, we can see now we have 5 observations for each of this continent, and we get the standard error for of the life expectancy per continent. Okay, and then alternatively, we can chain all this together and include all these summary statistics, minimum, find the minimum, maximum, mean, standard error. Okay, so first of all, actually by continent, right? So first of all, we group by continent, then we chain that and get the summary statistics. For example, here we get the mean, rather the mean of the life expectancy, the minimum life expectancy, the maximum, and the standard deviation. Okay, so once we have that, we can just execute that, and we can see now we have all these columns summarizing all these summary statistics for all the different continents. Okay, so with that, we conclude all the different most commonly used verbs in Dplyr package. And later on, we'll see how we can now use this summary statistics, or we can use this, analysis or results, and then we can use Dplyr to actually render that on a plot.